If you haven't seen the hunting guide, it is out.
The units are the fundamental piece of this whole new process.
6 new units, still same number of units, similar boundary lines. Check your guide.
When they check the guide, that's when they're going to ask the very number one overwhelming question in West Tennessee. And that is, there's no longer Unit CWD in that western part of the state. It is now Unit 1. Touch on that real quick. Why that change and why it's not Unit CWD anymore.
What we heard from the public out in West Tennessee was we just want to be like everyone else, essentially, right? Harvest was declining in the old Unit CWD, and that's what concerned us. At the end of the day, we want people to keep hunting, right? Yeah. Not only for disease management, but because this is like
what Tennesseans do.
Yeah, I mean, this is our heritage. Yeah. And it's like, I just want to address that. We're not giving up on CWD. We still have the CWD management zone in place and the incentive programs.
The management zone is separate from Unit 1. There's a map in the guide that shows what the management zone is. And the transportation color chart is there too. Feeding and transportation still applies.
Besides, what happened to Unit CWD? The number 2 question is, I can't use a gun come velvet season? Correct. You cannot use a gun. It is archery only.
So Unit 1, it's archery only. Same as statewide. There are some select WMAs that you can hunt on, but it's mostly private land.
For example, let's look at Wolf River WMA. And it says right there, open to statewide season, unless noted. And then when you go down here to deer season, you'll see open for August archery hunt. See page 71.
Won't you take me back to Tennessee?
The award-winning Tennessee Wildcast is on the air with the latest info about hunting, fishing, boating, wildlife watching, and all things outdoors. This year, we celebrate the men and women of the TWRA responsible for 75 years of wildlife conservation. Now make welcome your host, Jason Harmon.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Tennessee Wildcast. We're glad you're tuning in. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We got a great show lined up for you today. It's all about deer season. It's just around the corner. We're going to kick off the fall right here. And I got Miss Amy Spencer helping me co-host. She's normally not in the Nashville office, but she's visiting today. And I thought, what better time to have her come in and help?
Yeah, way to line up all those meetings in one day.
Yeah, it's been a full day today, but happy to be here talking about the upcoming deer season. Like I said, it's right around the corner. Everybody's excited. It's getting cooler out there. Football is starting.
I knew he'd get a football comment. Yeah. I knew it.
I got my little Tennessee pig here. We got to keep that rolling. Go Big Orange. And but yeah, I'm excited about this time of year. It's my favorite time of year to be outside and just enjoy what all is out there. So before we get started, though, and introduce the folks here, I want to highlight a radio station. We appreciate our radio partners, WTBG out of Brownsville. It's 95.3. They run our extras at 12:30 on Monday through Friday, and then they run the full show on the weekends. We really appreciate our radio partners and couldn't do it without you guys sharing it out there and getting it across the state. We're on radio from Memphis to Bristol.
And I always say it's still cool when I hear it on the local radio. I'm like, hey, there we are.
Yeah, and I just got a conversation at church last weekend. I hear you on Saturday mornings when I'm in the kitchen. So it's like you don't know where all you're reaching, but we're reaching those households and folks driving around in their cars and Memphis to Mountain City. It's great. So anyway. So let's kick it off. I want to introduce our guest, Mr. Mark McBride. He's been with us before. He's Assistant Chief of Wildlife, and appreciate you being here and jumping in again. We talked about some of the same topics we're going to talk about today. We talked about last time you were here, I believe.
Yep.
But appreciate you being here. And then Sonia Mongold is here as well, and she's never been on a show.
Yeah, first time.
So we need to get a little bit of background about you.
When you said that earlier, because I thought she's been on.
No.
So share with the folks at home watching and listening, how long you been with the agency? Where'd you come from? Just a little bit about what you do for us.
Yeah, so I've actually been with the agency for about 3 years, and I've been in this position for 2.5 years. I'm the Wildlife Health Program Coordinator here. And I guess before that, I kind of got my start in non-game. So I was doing a lot of turtle research out in Louisiana, and I worked with fisheries for a while. And then kind of switched over to game a little bit more with U.S. Fish and Wildlife before moving to Tennessee. So Here we are.
Yeah, that's cool. So you've worked with a couple of different agencies, and that's neat. That's very cool. Where did you go to school?
I went to school at University of Louisiana Monroe. That was for
Okay.
my master's, and I did my undergrad in Iowa at Iowa State University.
Oh.
So kind of all over the country a little bit. So
Did you end up in Tennessee because you were from Tennessee, or
no,
Okay.
I was born in Florida, raised in Minnesota. I'm all over the board.
all over?
Yeah.
That's a good
A
background.
frequent flyer, Mom.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a good background for having all that diversity, in your toolbox, to come work for us. And I'm sure Mark appreciates all the work you do up there, and a big help for all the stuff that's going on. I mean, it's good stuff.
Oh yeah. Wildlife health is really growing. I mean, across the country, almost every agency's adding these positions, and not only CWD, but there's a whole host of diseases that we're just learning about. So it's really exciting to come in and see Sonia kind of grow this program and work with all these other states to kind of connect all these data streams and figure out like, hey, what do we got to be paying attention for?
Mm-hmm.
How can we keep all of our animals nice and healthy? So.
Yeah.
It's cool to have my whole team is so diverse, all the game species, wildlife health. We have a data scientist, a human dimensions person. So we get to do a lot of cool stuff, and seeing how it all fits together is the real cool part.
Definitely. I love to chat with you guys and hear the stories and the different things that are going on. It's good stuff. So, well, let's jump in. Recent changes is what kind of brought this show up.
If you haven't seen the hunting guide, it is out. And I think that's when some of the questions really started, because people actually had it in front of them, were looking at it online, and then they were like, whoa, wait a minute, I don't want to understand what's happened here. So, and that's what we're going to discuss. Some of those big changes.
That's it. Yeah. So, like she said, it's on our website, tnwildlife.org. The PDF is there. It's also embedded into the pages. There's a summary there. So we try to make it as easy as possible. The button's on the homepage. I don't know how much easier it can get than that. tnwildlife.org, click the button, and it breaks it down into big game, small game. It's got
We
the
even
summary.
mailed some to your house.
Yes.
If you were a sportsman license holder, you should have received it in the mail. And then it is slowly appearing in the local stores, but your outdoor stores, but they should be coming soon if it's not in your store.
Definitely. So, Mark, I want to turn it over to you real fast and just kind of, we've talked about this multiple times and multiple commission meetings, at least one wildcast of some of the changes that came down the pike this year that have changed how we manage a little bit in those different units and things across the state, and all that's reflected in the guide. But just kind of give people a quick overview of that, and then we'll dive into some of those big questions.
Yeah, so I'll try, and there's a whole lot of information here. As you said, we've talked about this almost for a year now. We introduced it at the October commission meeting, talked about it again in January, and then March and April would probably be the best commission meetings for folks to watch to kind of see the whole package, why we're doing what we're doing. But at the end of the day, a lot of the changes felt from hunters right now are clearly the units, and then some slightly different hunting regulations. And so the units are kind of the fundamental piece of this whole new process that we're starting. It's called adaptive harvest management. That's kind of the technical term for it. But in a nutshell, it's kind of a very data-driven process. And so in order to do that, we needed to have stable units. And we had to have units where we did this for turkeys as well. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to have units where the deer and turkey populations were kind of based on the same fundamental environmental conditions,
right.
So that we could monitor changes through time with most things held constant. So what we did to group counties for deer was just go through, we highlighted 9 different biological and environmental characteristics in those counties, and then pick the counties where those were most similar. So the first one that I'll highlight is harvest density. So we wanted counties where the harvest density across those counties were somewhat similar. So a lot of people, like in East Tennessee, are like, I don't understand how these counties are kind of grouped in. Not only do we use harvest density, we looked at, all these what we're calling environmental factors that they're really not going to change much, like percent forest, percent agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
We've got percent public land in there. The soil productivity index, believe it or not, that can have a large contribution towards the productivity of deer populations and turkey populations.
Definitely.
So we wanted kind of biologically relevant units. So as we're implementing hunting seasons and monitoring things, it helps us understand that, hey, most of these changes, most of these population dynamics are somewhat similar across this unit. And so if you contrast that with how we had been doing it, we were really just looking at harvest through time and collecting observational data from staff and from the public throughout the state. And folks might say, hey, I don't think I'm seeing as many deer over here. And it's like, okay, well, maybe this county should be moved over to that county then. And then a few years later, someone else might be like, I'm seeing way more deer at my property. Let's move this county back over to this county. And if you look at, even the 15-year history of those units in East Tennessee particularly, there's been a lot of shifting of those units. And that makes it really hard for us as managers to figure out what's going on when these counties are shifting between different regulations.
Yeah.
There's different impacts of the harvest because they have different regulations. So that's kind of a high-level background of how we got to these new units.
So there's 6 new units, and that's very similar to what was already there. I mean, they're not the same boundaries right now. Some of them are very close boundaries. That's what they were, but then they were A, B, C, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
But still, same number of units, similar boundary lines. Check your guide, check it out, and you'll see what those boundaries are.
And when they check the guide, that's when they're going to ask the very number one overwhelming question in West Tennessee. And that's
why I pulled Amy. Yeah.
Well, I knew exactly when the guide had hit online and in the stores because I will literally say in about a week, my phone, I had several texts and phone calls.
Yep.
Hey, girl, what's up? Explain something to me here. And I'm like, okay, well, let me, thought y'all already knew all this. We've talked about it 100 times. But the most overwhelming thing that people were shocked to see is there's no longer Unit CWD in that western part of the state. It is now Unit 1. Mm-hmm. So if you want to touch on that real quick of, why that change and why it's not Unit CWD anymore.
Yeah, so that when we were going through that unit process, right, we wanted to create units that were small enough where we could kind of detect change that was going on. They weren't, super big, but we also didn't want 15 different small units.
And we also had L and Unit CWD in the same western geographical area, which it got confusing to hunters and staff inside, or people trying to figure out what they could do.
Well, exactly. And Unit CWD from 2019 when it was created until 2 years ago, it expanded almost every single year, and the hunting regulations changed over there.
Yeah.
So that kind of background I provided, that's how we ended up with Unit 1. And then we actually went through a process with the hunting regulations. Again, I'll direct folks to these commission meetings because there's a lot of kind of technical theory.
There's a lot of data, and in December, there's the data that drove some of these changes in that presentation. Or January, it was actually January. Sorry, yeah. January.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But yeah, so we went to the public back in October. We had a public meeting in each region. We live streamed one of those meetings. We pushed that out on social media, said, watch this, here's what the agency's doing. And we set up an online input tool. And we had over 10,000 comments in that tool. But what we were essentially asking people was, what do you think about all of your hunting seasons? We had kind of some specific questions that we asked them. And one of those was, what do you think about a muzzleloader season? Do you want a traditional muzzleloader season? Do you want primitive weapons in muzzleloader season? What do you think about using rifles in muzzleloader season? And so I think I may be skipping ahead a little here, but this is just kind of how we got to the regulations and there not being a unit CWD and those hunting regulations going back, essentially reverting to what the statewide regulations are.
Yeah, I think it makes it so much easier the way it is now because you don't have that difference for a unit CWD regulation and changes. All the changes happen as across the state. All the changes are the same across the state for each unit.
Now we are uniform across the state on opening dates and closing dates and weapons, and that makes it a lot easier as the communication side when we're trying to talk to someone, because I spent a lot of my days talking about the old unit CWD, what you could hunt with, bag limits. So now we're kind of simplifying things, and it's a lot easier to deal with and communicate.
Yeah, but what's interesting, right, is we didn't that wasn't one of our goals going into this, right? I mean, and we honestly didn't intend to. I mean, we had a draft package that was all the CWD regulations. It was the rifles and archery, including the season extension at the end, all the way to the end of January, and just what we heard from the public out in West Tennessee was, we just want to be like everyone else, essentially, right? We've got this.
I will tell you, as a small game hunter and someone who wanted to go on the property and do small game things, mainly run my bird dogs, you couldn't get on property when deer season is on. And that is one thing that we were actually hurting. We're our small game hunters. So now our small game hunters can get back out there and enjoy as soon as deer season's over, because everybody has this fear that your running dogs are going to run my deer off. And no, I have a whole other story about that too. And you go through there and you turn around and look, and the deer come out behind you after you just run a dog and a horse through there. Right. So, I'm just grateful for that opportunity for those small game guys and gals to get back out there and enjoy the outdoors.
Yeah. Well, let's start with August. The August archery hunt that's coming up very quickly.
Number one question. Yeah,
the number one question, and Amy had pointed this out, that folks are saying, well, I can't use a gun anymore.
Yeah. So that has been number one, besides what happened to Unit CWD. The number two question is, wait a minute, I can't use a gun come velvet season? Correct. You cannot use a gun. It is archery only, and that's...
Yeah. So Unit 1, you guys out there, guys and gals out in Unit 1 that are going out, it's archery only, just like I said.
Shooting your bows.
Yeah, same as statewide.
Yep.
There are some select WMAs that you can hunt on, but it's mostly private land. So
yeah, it's private land, except if you were familiar last year, it's going to be the same WMAs, and you can actually go and look in the guide under each WMA, but I just happen to have a list right here. So if you're curious, what is open during the August velvet hunt in Unit 1 would be Meeman Shelby Forest, State Park and State Natural Area, the Eagle Lake Refuge. Oh, I can't say this. Bomprezi Unit of the Eagle Lake Refuge, Wolf River Wildlife Management Area Unit 1 and 2, Piperton Wetland, Chickasaw State Forest Wildlife Management Area, Grace Creek Wildlife Management Area, Oak Dane Wetland, Big Hill Pond State Park, Tall Bottoms WMA, South Fork Refuge, Spring Creek WMA, Colonel Forest Duran Wildlife Management Area. And some people are like, where's that at? That's basically behind the fairgrounds there in Jackson. That's just easier for people to know where that is. Fort Ridge WMA, Lower Hatchie National Wildlife Refuge, John Tully WMA, Horns Bluff Refuge, Mana Swamp, only the portion line within Gibson County, Parker Branch WMA, Perry Switch WMA, and the south part of Natchez Trace, which is Henderson County, will be open.
Okay. Perfect. And that, like we said, that's listed. If you're reading under the WMAs, you're going to see something that says same as statewide, and that means it's the same as the statewide reg. So for the August archery hunt,
except as noted,
is private lands only. So if it says same as statewide, except as noted, just know that that's still private lands unless it's noted.
And then if you go and you look, for example, let's look at Wolf River WMA, and it says right there, open to statewide season, unless noted. And then when you go down here to deer season, you'll see open for August archery hunt. See page 71 of the guide, and that flips you back over. Yeah. So just keep that in mind. That was one of the big questions that we were getting. And so what I want to go to next is and to make sure so much we want to get into here, and I don't want to forget it, but I want to come back to you, Sonia. The sampling, all the testing, it's not Unit CWD anymore, but that is still happening. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. We're still sampling for CWD statewide, as we have been doing for many years now. So we still have the drop-off freezers. You can take your deer to partnering processors or taxidermists to get them sampled. And you will get those results. We typically around 2 weeks, about 2 to 4 weeks. Sometimes it's a little faster than that, which is great. But please go onto your account and make sure that you have an updated email address, phone number, so that we can send those results to you, because we will send them through email. If it's a positive animal, we'll probably give you a phone call too. So definitely, we are still sampling. If you are hunting in an area that is known to have CWD, the CDC recommends that you get that deer tested and don't consume the meat from that deer if it comes back positive.
Yeah. It's just as important as it was it doesn't change. We still are concerned and want to know about our deer herd and our health of our herd. So nothing changed there. So
and go ahead and plan ahead in August, because a lot of the processors are not open during this time because it is warmer and it's only a 3-day weekend. So plan ahead. We do have the drop-off freezer locations. Those sites have been updated on our webpage. We just had that call the other day to make sure all of that was updated.
CWDintennessee.com.
And she brought up a really good point. If you haven't updated your phone and you haven't, because we all know Apple's had an update the other day, because I got locked. I got the little nastygram that I was out of compliance. But anyway, update your phone and update our app. Because if it's not, when you go in to check in that deer, you're going to have some issues. So that's another important point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to just build off what you said, Jason. I think there's been some folks that have felt like this is the agency kind of taking a step back from CWD, and I want to be clear that's not what it is. Like I said, we heard from some hunters over there. They're like, keep things the same. We did a lot of public outreach. Had public comment on these regulations back in February, and really looked at the big picture. So we know there's a lot of hunters that just, hey, we don't like the optics of having this disease unit. We want things to be the same. And of course, we took a step back, like we need to look at this from a disease management perspective. And so we really poured over the data. And if you go back to the January and March commission meetings, you can see we presented some of that. And at the end of the day, harvest was declining in the old unit CWD. In those counties, through time, harvest has gone down.
Seeing less hunters.
We're seeing less hunters, and that's what concerned us. At the end of the day, we want people to keep hunting, right?
Yeah,
we all hunt. We care about hunting.
Yes.
We want to keep people hunting, not only for disease management, but because this is like
what Tennesseans do.
Yeah. I mean, this is our heritage.
Yeah.
And it's like, if we're pushing people out hunting, that doesn't sit well with us, right? So we want to keep people hunting. We want to keep people shooting deer for disease management. Get it tested, take it home, feed your family like you always have if it's negative. So I just want to address that. We're not giving up on CWD. In fact, if you look at the big picture, I think we're going to talk about the management zone, the feeding and transport rules in a second here.
Good transition.
There we go.
That's still in place, right? That's not unchanged. So we still have the CWD management zone in place and the incentive programs.
The management zone is separate from Unit 1. So just know that those counties, there's a map in the guide that shows what the management zone is. So just know that. And the transportation color chart is there too. So feeding and transportation still applies. We won't go too deep into it. I mean, you can go as deep as you want to, Mark and Sonia, but it's there. On what page is that?
It's actually page 68 on the guide. And that was another question that I was receiving in texts and phone calls. Are we still controlling the movement? Yes. And we're still controlling the feeding. And I think you wanted to go ahead and elaborate on some of that, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that really has changed from last year, which we made the change during last season, was Lewis County was added onto that. So it's, I think, 23 counties total. But it's really to kind of simplify the management of movement, really, and wildlife feeding.
And getting your deer to a taxidermist
Yes.
or a processor when you want to.
There were definitely some confusing points to kind of the previous iteration of the CWD management zone with carcass transport restrictions. So this kind of makes it a little bit easier for folks to get those deer to their destinations and still being compliant with movement. So I think it kind of helps overall. And I think it's going well so far.
And know your border transportation rules too, in and out of state. That's
right.
important too. And that's all there. And
Or bringing animals from another state in here. A lot of people still get confused about that. That even, hey, you're CWD. No, you still can't bring these in from other states.
Yeah, I think essentially every state has the same rule now, where it's got to be boned out. You can't bring boned in meat in
and all
or
those
whole carcasses.
Right, and you talking about that? That's all there. Deboned, all those specific parameters.
Yeah, all your approved parts, it's on there.
Yeah. I guess the major point of the CWD management zone is it does not include any specific hunting regulations. So it's completely separate from hunting regulation packages.
Yes.
Yeah, and that was the old, and I'm not going to get into the misconception, when we would deal with this with something with a positive going county, people would automatically assume, and this is so much simpler the way we have it now. This is easier for hunters, it's easier for staff, it's easier for everyone involved.
So let's touch on the earn a buck and the replacement buck. And I'll let y'all decide who wants to touch on it. But that's those two things are still
Yes, we have
still apply.
both of
Still
those harvest incentive programs. The Earn a Buck program, any hunter that harvests an antlerless deer, checks it in, and submits that deer for CWD sampling within a positive county. So there's 17 positive counties. I think you have the list if you wanted to list them out.
Yeah,
But,
finish it. I can read them.
So then you earn a buck from that antlerless harvest that was submitted for CWD testing. And then there's also the replacement buck. If you harvest an antlered deer and it comes back positive, you will also be able to harvest an additional buck.
And that's a question we get every year. How long are those earn a buck
Yes,
good for?
That's a good question. So the earn a buck is just for the current season. The replacement buck, this gets a little tricky because sometimes you might not get that result until after the season already closes. So
Yeah, like last year. See, ooh, I already went ahead. No.
Yeah. So that carries over to the following season, but it only lasts for that next season. So the current and then the following for replacement. But then we also have the Fight CWD incentive program, where any positive deer result that you get, that a hunter gets, they get the $75 voucher. And we also have, if you end up with 2 positive animals, then you get that annual sportsman license on us for the following year.
First year I didn't get an annual.
Oh.
I was like,
That's one that I'd forgotten about. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah. So
no,
those,
I hadn't.
those are on page 69, right,
Yes.
of the guide. So all those details are there for each of those management incentive programs. So perfect.
Yeah. So real quick, touching on that earn a buck, I won't go through all the counties, but I do want to point out the statewide buck bag limit is 2 this year.
Good.
So previously, Unit CWD did have a 3 buck bag limit. With no more Unit CWD, it's just 2 across the state.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good to bring that up. So during the August hunt, that is antlered only, buck only. It doesn't have to be in velvet, though.
Correct.
It's just antlered. So people call it the velvet hunt. It's just an antlered deer. So make sure, and it counts towards your statewide limit of two antlered deer, 1 per day. So that's statewide throughout the whole season. Other units have, the antlerless limits and things like that. Check the guide, check the summary, and you can see what those are. No extended antlerless season this year.
Can I go woohoo? No, I'm just kidding.
Just make sure, and Amy mentioned that there's more chance for the small game hunter, but just make sure that, just bring that up again, that season is not extended, and what is in the guide is in the guide, and what's on the website.
Yeah, we'll end with youth in January. That will be the ending on that. So.
Yep.
So just
and let me remind, because that's another question. When it's youth only, it's youth only. That doesn't mean you can go hunt. That is every year we get that question.
Yeah, but they have to be accompanied by
an adult. Yes.
Yeah. So, and all that's in the guide. I'm excited about this year. I think it's going to be fun. I'm ready to get outdoors and do some hunting. I don't know if I'll be out there on the August hunt though.
I don't know.
It's so hot.
Yeah.
So like we said earlier, make sure you've found your processor or just ready to get that deer on ice.
Yeah, and actually, if you're going to get one mounted, we actually have some videos on our website on how to prepare that deer to get it to your taxidermist, because you're going to have to get busy pretty quick. And then just go ahead and check your freezer locations if you want to get it tested, so you know where you can take that deer to get it done.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we've covered a lot here today. Anything else that we left out?
No, you can find all this on our website.
On our website, tnwildlife.org.
Or CWD in Tennessee.
CWDintennessee.com. It's all right there, and they're all interchangeable. They're all on pretty much the same site. It's just different landing pages, but that'll get you to where you need to find all this information and be
shoot
ready.
us an email, or once I have my phone number, they've been wearing it out the last. Send me a text.
Yeah.
Yep.
Text preferred.
Text preferred. Yeah. So it's going to be an exciting season all across the board. We talked about deer today, but I mean, after working on the hunting guide this past 2 or 3 months, it's going to be a lot of fun hunting this year. I'm excited. So I always get fired up this time of year. So get out there and enjoy what Tennessee has to offer. Sonia and Mark, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate what y'all do. Amy, thank you for what you do. And this is Tennessee Wildcast. Keep coming back, keep watching, keep listening. Like, share, tag, all that fun stuff. And we'll see you next time.
Stay connected with TWRA by visiting our website at tnwildlife.org and follow us on Facebook, X, and Instagram. Join us as we celebrate 75 years of conservation in our great state. You can invest in Tennessee's wildlife future by purchasing a license at GoOutdoorsTennessee.com. That's GoOutdoorsTennessee.com.